Hello and welcome to this discussion on planning a gap year in 2021. We have gathered a selection of experts in the gap year industry to offer some advice and support on how best to organise an incredible year out when travel feels almost impossible. It's been a difficult year all round and the travel industry has been hit particularly hard. Despite it all, the 4 organisations that you're about to meet have kept going strong and used their innovative thinking and resourcefulness to provide students with wonderful opportunities all around the world. Together, they represent a broad range of choices. We've got the arts and culture, languages, team and individual volunteering, all sorts of adventures and ski seasons as well. I'm going to start by introducing Roger Salwey from Oyster Worldwide. Oyster is an experienced organisation offering a variety of carefully put together programmes in 23 destinations, ranging from paid work in Canada and Australia, through to volunteering in animal conservation or as a sports coach. Roger, could you tell us what makes Oyster unique, please?
And sure. We really try to offer the very best of what there is out there, and there is such a wide range of things you can do in a gap year. It can be quite hard to know where to start. So we are small, but we have got really over time found excellent projects that fit with all our goals in animal conservation, sports coaching, and we know people like to earn money sometimes on their gap years, and a good number of our participants go off to the ski resorts in Canada to earn money there, or in Australia, and increasingly TEFL in there. So really we have high standards for everything we have on our site, but there is a huge variety. We specialise in having the best that there is. Thanks.
Thank you. Emily Lusty from the Language Gap offers tailor-made language learning solutions, offering long and short-term language courses, combining activities, volunteering and more in any language, almost anywhere in the world. What makes the Language Gap different from other language programs, Emily?
So we don't do off-the-shelf ideas because each experience is tailor-made for the client. We start with a questionnaire about their aims and experiences, and then in a free 30-minute consultation, I build each language gap from scratch, ensuring that every language gapper has a unique, constructive and brilliant time designed for their needs and aims in their chosen language. I arrange all sorts of trips from a week to a full gap year, summer camps, intensive language courses, homestays, exam preparation, teacher training for English as a foreign language, volunteering and work experience in all sectors such as the arts, sports, on land and water, education, conservation and sustainable development.
Wow, thank you. Thanks, Emily. And Millie Whitehead is from The Leap, which is an organisation that offers team volunteering experiences around the world. Millie, why is The Leap a great choice for gap year students?
Well, we fill the gap of people that want to go travelling, but they don't want to do it on their own. They want the camaraderie of others to make them feel confident and to kind of have that instant social life. But in all our projects, which are usually, or experiences, not projects, usually scripted between 4 and 6 weeks, we interweave volunteering experiences with adventure. So it's a kind of fast-paced, dynamic experience, keeping them kind of busy and, you know, entertained the whole time. But the projects, our passion at The Leap is conservation and community development. So conservation, especially at the moment. So every project, every adventure has a conservation angle. So people are seeing and contributing to grassroots conservation initiatives in any part of the country, the world that they go to, which people find kind of really interesting. Obviously at school they learn about plastic oceans, but actually through us, for example, in Costa Rica, they have an actual chance to see where the plastic comes from, what the country is doing about it, and actually get their hands dirty in contributing to its demise. So that's what we do.
Thanks very much. And Nick Ross is from Art History Abroad, which specialises in bringing art and culture to life. AHA offers programs in Italy and India, exploring all aspects of civilization and eating seriously good food along the way. Nick, what do you think students gain from a trip with Art History Abroad?
I imagine, well, there are 2 or 3 things. One is that I think a successful gap year is one that has different parts to it. and they apply to different sorts of experience. So one might be to test your character and to go and put yourself in unfamiliar surroundings and meet people the like of whom you would never meet again. And this is where we come in, and where I think we're unique, is that we're interested in polishing or expanding the intellectual horizons of those who come to us. The nature of schooling and education is that one tends to pigeonhole subjects, where of course that's not exactly how life works. One subject leads into another, and there is no better vehicle in my mind to do that than through art and culture, because when looking at a painting or a building, you can hardly ignore the economics or the history behind that, or the individual character of the person who made it. And so it becomes a really thrilling experience of looking at knowledge in a much greater way. And also there are aspects of our lives, and I think this is the chief takeaway, that many people are anxious about culture. They think that they don't know. Their education, they feel unconfident about expressing an opinion. Personally, I've always seen culture as being a thing of delight that carries you through life, that is really exciting, and that you can take part. And so our course really offers confidence, that intellectual confidence, to think, I know about this, and even if I don't know, I can still express an opinion. And that's whether it's philosophy or art or architecture or sculpture or music, poetry, literature. All of those things are wrapped up in our course as we travel around Italy, and, as I say, India as well. There are so many people who go off to India, for example, who come back and you ask them what did they learn, and they say, well, I learned a lot about myself. And that's not really good enough. It's all about learning more about the way other people not just live, but how their culture works. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. So now on to some tougher questions. I think the thing that many students want to know at the moment is whether they can still take a gap year in 2021, or at least take one that involves getting out of the house and away from Zoom. The answer is yes, you absolutely can. And we want to reassure you that there are so many options open to you. You just need to know where to look. So once you've made the decision to take a gap year, you can begin to kind of narrow down how you'd like to spend it. What is it that you want to achieve from your year? New experiences, of course, perhaps to make new friends, to grow in confidence and empathy and independence, to finally leave the country, to take a break from the pressures of school and university, or to save money for university. Whatever it is, you've made the right decision. I've never met anyone, I've never heard of anyone who's regretted taking a gap year. I really believe you only have something to gain. In fact, you have a huge amount to gain. So there are more uncertainties and a few more limits now than there were a couple of years ago, and those are the things that we're going to try and help you with today. One question lots of students and parents have been asking recently is, will it be safe? There's so much information to take in and such rapidly changing regulations. How are we supposed to keep up with all of this advice? Roger, could you tell us your thoughts on this?
Well, the first kind of quick answer to the question is it has to be safe. None of us here or anywhere else want to put young people in danger, or worse still, expose local people to any horrible things we might bring. Really, the safety splits into two parts. There's, first of all, the work that we do at Oyster, and every organisation, I'm sure, is the checks done on a project, the visit before anyone even goes there. There's lots of paperwork, risk assessments. There's the British standard that many of us go by, the BS 8848. So we do all that side. But the other, really probably more important part, is for the individual themselves to take on, to be responsible for themselves, to listen to the briefings. Local people are the very best to brief you on local matters and changing situations. And we do that by very softly screening people to ask them if they travelled before. There's obviously a lot of written information. There are, in certain destinations, there's a UK briefing before you even get out there. And in every destination, when you get out on the ground, once you've got over the flight, safety is the first thing that you hear about before you get the more exciting things. Thanks.
Great, thank you, very helpful. Millie, the LEAP has recently set up a kind of VIP service to help gappers navigate the COVID travel world. Could you tell us how and where students might access the best information on traveling that they know they can trust?
Yeah, and that actually is perfectly aligned with this safety. It was born with safety in mind, because the old pre-COVID, everybody, the trend was to not go through an organisation, one of us, it was just to wing it, book some flights on Skyscanner, hop over to South America and happy days, including my son this time last year. Anyway, he and his friends were in Bolivia just as the world was shutting down, and it took literally 5 flights, 5 countries, 5 days to get him home. No one really needs that level of stress again, hence the VIP. And I'm urging everybody to, all the gappers now and going forward with the climate that we're in, is they have got to seek, one has to seek, you know, professional advice like any of us can offer about the rules and regulations, the in-country. I mean, the admin to get people to Costa Rica at the moment is huge. And it's like a step-by-step process. There's probably 5 steps involved. And it's starting with booking a flight. A simple thing which people used to do through Skyscanner is booking a flight through a prestigious agency like Trailfinders, who are going to have got your back, actually care, will change your flights if necessary, or ATOL and got every certificate known to man, so you're not going to lose out. So yes, do your due diligence like Roger said, but right now safety is safety stroke security in travel, and knowing you've got all the right paperwork and you are doing everything correctly. And that needs guidance. And that's hence LEAP VIP. That is the service that offers.
Okay, great. Traveling and attending gap year programs is, of course, a really big investment, and lots of people have saved up for this. Emily, could you tell us a bit about financial security and refund policies at the moment?
Of course, it's a real, again, as Millie was saying, it's an absolute minefield, because every company and every organisation has responded to this in different ways. I think we would all agree, more than anything else, taking adequate travel insurance to cover all eventualities as soon as you have booked anything else is the main thing to do. And you're going to need guidance on which travel insurance to take, because that in itself is a massive job, just finding one that will cover you for what you want to do. I know that we can all help with that. Also, it's all the organisations here give advice on what the current circumstances are for their countries, the countries that they cover. That changes on a daily basis, so that's really, really difficult to get that information. You need to go and get expert help from one of us for that. The other thing is that I know we'd agree with this as well, is that it's really, really important to check the terms and conditions of the organisation or provider that you're booking with. There's an inherent risk of cancellation to booking any trip, and you really want to consider what you're going to do if the programme you've chosen is cancelled due to COVID and due to the situation changing where you are or where the programme is running. So most programmes will exchange whatever you've paid up to the point of cancellation for a similar programme at a later date if the reason for cancellation is out of their control. But if they have to cancel, they should really offer a full refund. And you must check this is the case by reading the small print. A refund policy, I think, is actually a pretty good benchmark of how good an organisation is. In the current circumstances, you can pretty much tell whether you want to travel with somebody. Personally, as I operate in a different way, and I charge a search fee, I work in a different way and find things for people to do. I check all the policies of the organisations that I use and encourage people, oblige them to read all the terms and conditions of each organisation, locations, language schools, and so on. What's fantastic about language schools is they've got the flexibility of being able to come back and say, look, you know, there's been a lockdown or whatever that's happening in the location, but we can run all your classes online instead. Now, I know we're all absolutely completely fed up with learning online, so that must be something that you have to take into consideration. In terms of the fee that I charge, what I've said to people is that if you come to me and for some reason the trip that we've planned can't go ahead, I'll plan you another one at in a different location where you can go, or at a different time later on without any additional fee. So that's my own response to it. But I know that you really have to check. That's the most important thing.
Can I add to that, because that's really interesting with the cancellation and the insurance, and it does really. I'm being fascinated looking at all our competitors out there, the good, the bad, and the ugly of how people have responded. And just to make it clear, there is no insurance policy right now which is going. I mean, there's only one insurance policy right now to insure anybody to go travelling against the Foreign Office advice. And that insurance company and going forward will not cover any COVID cancellation. So it is critical that you speak to the organisation or the person that's going to help you, that are they going to step in? And like we have said to all our clients, we will step in. If you can't go because of COVID, we will give you all your money back. So we, as an organisation, and that's going to really cut out the good organisations from the bad, asking that simple question. You know, if we can't go because I failed my COVID test and I can't go to any other time, will you give me my money back? And if they're worth the wait and go, they'll say yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's it's as simple as that.
Yeah, and there are some organisations who are very happy not to take money until the very last minute.
Yeah, I mean, we're not taking money.
Nobody's out to either hold money or leave students and their parents feeling anxious about this. Many of us are, in this sense, sort of self-insuring. We're just taking it out of the hands of the insurance companies.
But what we don't have any sort of cover for is things like airlines, who, if you fail your COVID test before you get on the plane, you're really in trouble. So I mean, there's a lot of guidance that you need currently. That it looks like things are going to get better, and I think that's really important as well. I think by May and June there'll be fewer restrictions. Hopefully everyone over 18 by July will have been vaccinated in the UK anyway. Vaccination passports for international travel will be coming in, and it will be much less of a maze, but you're still going to need help, because there will be countries where they're worried about their local populations with good reason. So there are lots of things to cover with that in terms of weighing up the benefits. And the benefits is it's still worth traveling, but you have to do it carefully and with good information.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Nick, AHA has found new depths of flexibility in the last year. Could you offer some advice to students who want to know how to plan when the situation continues to change? So we've spoken a bit about this idea of knowing what the regulations are and how to work with them, but what happens when you're somewhere and the regulations have changed and you're not having the experience you expect?
Well, I suppose it comes from both ends. I think all of us here have learned to pivot. Pivot's become the big watchword of the year, I suppose. And we're all really good at pivoting and changing plans at very, very short notice. And that's kind of part of the sort of personal service thing and being involved with smaller organizations, I think. The other thing is that it's also is inherent upon you as a traveler to accept that things aren't necessarily going to be the way you're expecting. And so there's kind of a shared responsibility in this, and that everybody is in it together and has the very best of intentions one for another. And so, for example, when we wrote a COVID protocol, it starts off with, you know, we're in this together, let's go and have an adventure. And I think that's really, really important. Then in terms of sort of safety on the ground and doing things, I think it's really more important than it ever has been that one's got to take on board that you're a guest in somebody else's country, and that not only have you got to obey their local rules, but you've got to be seen to be obeying those rules. You've got to be really careful about that. And then we've tweaked things, and it's been an amusing, you know, process. You know, there are various things that we've done. We don't, for example, one is can you imagine going into the Vatican at the moment. It's where pilgrims from around the world come, presumably bringing all sorts of exciting things with them. And so being crowded into the Sistine Chapel with 5,000 or 6,000 other people in something that's a little bit bigger than a tennis court, and staring up, it's a fantastic vector for exchange. So we thought, well, let's not do that. And so instead we went into the Vatican privately, and we found a way that you can go around with the bloke who opens up all the doors in the morning. So we go in at dawn, and we go from one chamber, from one chapel, throughout the Vatican Palace and the museum. And eventually you get to the Sistine Chapel, and he opens the door, and you are the first people to go in there of the day. And it's dark when you start, and it's dawn when you come, it's light when you come out. And you have a fantastic breakfast with the guard in the Vatican Caf. And anyway, so it's just a tiny thing. And I know that all of us are doing this, which is, there are you can run a course, but there are just going to be hotspots. Like, we don't take trains at the moment, we take private transport. You just mitigate and reduce the risks wherever you can, and just to make a safer approach. But that in its turn gives you enormous benefits, and it's good fun. So I think we're all getting really good at this pivoting and changing at short notice. But as I say, it's contingent on a willingness of both us to make the changes and those coming with us to accept that there may be change.
Yeah, I think that's really key right now, is for students to remember to stay flexible, and they'll have a great time. And so many students that I've interviewed this year have had incredible gap years and traveled and done all sorts of really interesting experiences, but they keep saying how they're just sort of going with the flow, and if the program has another idea that's safer, that the programs are doing their absolute best to make a really fun and interesting gap year, and do it safely. So just remaining flexible, I think, is a big one.
Well, I think in so many respects, this is the golden gap year. People are miserable about it, but it's actually the golden gap year, because you've got organizations who are prepared to take the risk and to make it possible regarding the finances and the security of funds. And at the same time, if you've got an open mind, my God, you can have a great time. It's really good. It's never been so good. And I think people really need to accept and realize that it's a marvelous time to get away.
Yeah,
I agree
silver
with that.
linings. Yeah.
What we've noticed here over just the last few months is the word collaboration. I mean, with our clients, people used to just only email or only kind of text. Now it's all on the phone again. It's back to real relationships and collaborating, parents, kids, and us, to do it together. And it's hugely rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is exciting times. If not nerve-wracking.
If you have had to change your plans at the last minute, and something's fallen through late in the day, there are options. Emily, how can you help those who are looking very last minute?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely the person to come to if you've got nothing to do, even at the moment, and you just want to make the most of a little bit of time. I have the flexibility to be able to help people find something really last minute, because there is always availability, especially at the moment, where many of the organisations that I work with, if you're willing to be flexible, you can go and do an educational or volunteering position abroad, and they're desperate because their numbers are down. So you're always going to find a place, or I'll be able to find a place for you somewhere that will interest you if you have that flexibility yourself. So there are, of course, options like ski instructor training, or English as a foreign language teacher training, and trips to destinations which require vaccinations and complicated flight itineraries, which have to be planned several months in advance, and that goes without saying. And I organise that sort of trip as well. People come to me, even a year in advance. But in general, I find something brilliant and constructive to do at very short notice. So my all-time record, and this was pre-COVID, I hasten to add, was a gap year student who called me on a Wednesday and was out in Seville by Sunday, learning Spanish, staying with a lovely host family with a great contact at the local tennis club, because she was a tennis pro, and she had an amazing 6 weeks away, improved her Spanish and fell in love with Andalusia. So I can do this very sort of last minute. But even now, I'm able to sign people up for courses in foreign languages in countries which will accept people with or without quarantine. I've even got language schools offering to teach people remotely while they do quarantine in country, and then you're released from that, and they'll come and feed you 3 times a day in isolation with the local food while you do your remote course. And then after that, you can go and do a live course afterwards. So there really are amazing options out there, and yes, last minute is absolutely fine. I can always help with that.
Okay, great.
Most of us have become last minute because we don't want to take anybody's money or book any flight. We're recommending that people don't do any of book flights till 3 weeks before they go, pay for a program 10 days before they go.
Yeah.
So those good old days of booking a year in advance, yes, to reserve a place, but actually nail down all the boring logistics is really.
Millie, how early do you recommend students get in touch to reserve a place on a program with the league?
Well, with ours, if you're talking places like Costa Rica and Kenya, which are the kind of top spots with us at the moment, I think people, to avoid disappointment for next year, September and January, they need to get booking in April, the summer this year.
Yeah, and that's
get their first place.
You mean September 2021, they should be booking in April?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we're running waiting lists. Yeah, they're already running waiting lists for July now.
Okay, great.
Right.
Nick, what do you think the added benefits of traveling with a group are this year?
I think
Fun.
the obvious one is becoming ill yourself. It would be really good to have other people around. Oddly enough, I had COVID over Christmas, and that wasn't much fun. So it's the camaraderie. The other thing is that if you're traveling on your own at the moment, it's slightly difficult because, not unnaturally, particularly in Italy, where things can be jolly social and there's a nice piazza lifestyle and all of those sorts of things. Right now, people will tend not to go and talk to people who are a stranger. So you do kind of need to go with your own gang, and for that reason, group travel is good. So it's good in terms of health. It's good in terms of support. The tutors and organisations are there to look after you. If socially it helps, going out to eat together, that all helps. And also critically, if something goes cataclysmically wrong, then, as Millie was explaining earlier on, you really do need backup. You need a third party who's going to know what's going on the ground and have friends. So I think those are, from a micro to a macro level, there are some pretty compelling reasons to travel with others, and there are some pretty compelling reasons not to travel on your own at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And Roger, if there are students who are really determined to travel on their own and they don't want to travel with a group, do you have any advice for them, or how can you help students in that situation if they're finding the current climate a bit intimidating to entirely go backpacking alone? What might you be able to help them with?
Sure. Well, actually, most of the opportunities we have, you go and join an existing project. So the project's been up and running. For instance, in the case of Romania Bears, that was something like 15 years ago we set it up. So it's ongoing, and animals need people year round. So you actually are joining something ongoing. The advantage of that is that there's already camaraderie and sort of esprit de corps and all that sort of thing. And you've got people around you to train you, and you're starting to run almost as soon as you arrive. You're never really on your own. You're always part of a group. It may be as small as 3 in the case of the Romanian Bears, or 40 in the case of monkeys in South Africa that are being rehabilitated. So I think we also have similar to the others here, I think, a business of where, you know, a whole group gets to the airport, we see them all off and they're all met at arrival. In Canada, it's a group of sort of 20 plus, goes out twice in November. And that's a really nice journey to go through. So yeah, it is an experience though to get on a plane at Heathrow, wherever it is, and be on your own only until you're met at the other end, and then you're put together with another group. So I think because the reason is because they are real life projects that that has to happen. I was years ago nervous about how that would be, but actually it's great. You know, people are very welcomed if you're stuck in the bush in South Africa and 2 new people arrive. You know, you're excited to see them and want to tell them everything, and it's a very quick process to get assimilated and involved and friendly with everyone.
Super.
Thanks.
Great. Okay, and I think to finish up, it would be great to illustrate the variety of kind of exciting opportunities you all offer, and just go into a bit more depth. If everyone could talk about a particular highlight or a really popular gap year opportunity that's going to be coming up this year. Yeah, Nick.
Oh, highlight or gap year opportunity. Sorry. What's coming up this year? Well, we're pretty excited. Our 6-week gap year course, the early summer course. We're aiming that's still going to go in April, and I think we may have found a way of getting everybody there, and then a new venture we've just started is about the environment and cities, and essentially it's a course that goes to Paris, where in the 19th century the whole city, or large parts of the city, were rebuilt as a modern city, and then so we're studying about social change in Paris. Then we go to Amsterdam to talk about architecture and the environment, and then we go to Berlin, where both under the Nazis and the communists, architecture very much represents political change. Now, this is all leading up to a visit to Venice, where this year's Architectural Biennale. So it's every other year, there's a wonderful international architectural exhibition, and it's entitled How Shall We Live Together? And there could be no better subject matter for this year. And so the course is good for architects, it's good for anybody who's really thinking forward about the environment and how people live together in a new world that we're all emerging into. And so that's a really sort of key course. There are other summer courses and further gap year courses that are running throughout the year. So there's lots going on. And then ultimately India. Hopefully this time next year, I'll be somewhere in Mumbai, I think. And anyway, that's a 6-week course that travels around India. So there's lots coming on. And then further into the future, for anybody who's in the lower 6th or below, we're looking at Japan and South America as places to run courses which study culture through art, as I mentioned earlier on. Thank you.
Fantastic. Roger.
Well, if I may, I might just pick 2 because we've got very contrasting experiences. The first one I wanted to mention, which is very topical, is that work permits for Canada have just literally last night sort of been promised for this year. So I mean, we're waiting for. So I think for us that the absolute highlight and most popular experience is going to be doing a full winter season in Canada, not just for those who can ski. Most people do go out to do very basic ski instruction for the 3 to 8-year-olds. You've got to like kids for this one, and you've got to be able to deal with quite a lot of responsibility, taking parents' kids, little kids, up the mountain in the cold, making them happy and bringing them back in one piece. So that's well paid. It's enough to you can certainly claim it's a cost-neutral gap year. And whilst many people would say, well, why are you doing a gap year? It sounds a bit hedonistic. You know, it is the responsibility. It's also getting a qualification that you can go back to if you ever want to be a ski instructor. Canada's a great place as well, although it's similar to the UK. It really rubs off on you that people are very pro-Canada, more than we are pro-British perhaps. And yes, you come back with lifelong friends. Your skiing should be tip top. And if you can't, by the way, if you can't ski, there are lots of people working in hotels very good customer service experience, a really high standard is required. And at the end of all that, you get a reference from us, and nearly always a reference from where you've worked too. The other one, just contrasting, I just go back to those monkeys in the Kruger in South Africa. It's a wonderful project because you are actually being part of a rehabilitation and learning an enormous amount about monkey baboon psychology, and you're working as part of a team, and that's fun. Of course, similar to what Nick was saying, people do come back saying it was all about the people I met, but actually they have learnt about primates and about rehabilitation, and they've learnt to live in a sort of fairly harsh environment and get up extremely early. Thanks, those are my two, sorry for two.
Super. Emily.
Yeah, so it's difficult for me to talk about things that I've got planned because it all depends on who comes to me and what they ask for. And then I sort of do it on the hop. But I obviously can draw from experience of many language gappers who've been and what they've done, and my sort of favourite successes. What I build on is trying to give people the language skills to communicate and therefore do what they want to do in the language. So I'm planning one at the moment where someone who's doing Spanish A-level wants to go and do music at university. So they'll be really polishing up their Spanish in an intensive course first. And I often do this, kind of build a 2 to 6 weeks of intensive language course at the beginning in an accredited language school, staying with a local family, so that you're really kind of thinking, breathing the language before you start doing something. It makes you useful as well. And then after that, he's going to be going and volunteering with a music project, which there are various of them that run all over Latin America and Spain. Specifically, we've got a choice of either Peru or Madrid for locations, where he's going to go and be teaching trumpet, which is his instrument, to kids at this after-school project, where they train them up to be professional musicians and play in an orchestra. And it's a social development project that is specifically aimed at children who are in some way socially deprived, and it gives them an actual skill. So he'll get a real sort of be dealing with people whose Spanish is their first language. He needs the Spanish to be able to teach music, which is the thing that he loves. So that's really what I try to do, the combination. I'm going to jump on the back of what Roger did and talk about a different one, where I do get a lot of people who've never done a language before, or they haven't done it since maybe they were 13 or 14, and they come to me and say, look, language isn't my main thing, but I appreciate, I'd like to go to this place because there's a thing that I'm interested, such as marine biology. So there's a marine biology project that I've worked with in Mexico, where someone who's going to do marine biology at university came to me and said, I want to go and do this, but I want to learn Spanish first. So she did her intensive month with a local Mexican family, staying with them, got her Spanish up to the level where she could speak to boat drivers and the guys who are filling the air bottles and so on. She's not got amazing Spanish, but it was good enough. And she said she got discounts in taxis and restaurants and stuff because she was actually trying and speaking the language. Where, okay, so most people speak some English, but it's so brilliant to be able to get in there and speak some of it. And her Spanish got really good over the year, so much so that when she went to read marine biology at university, and by this time she was a trained paddy dive master, and had done a coral conservation internship as well, so she's kind of qualified in everything. She's been able to continue with Spanish as one of her modules at university. So it's about looking at that as a wider skill and not just doing language for language sake. So I combine whichever thing that you want with whatever language. So yeah, hopefully. I've got lots of exciting people coming to me already asking for stuff for this year and next.
Great. Amazing story. And Millie, to finish with.
Right. Okay. Oh, where to begin? What I find, as I said earlier, all our programs have environmental projects, interwoven with adventure. That's kind of the formula. But what I found during lockdown, as I was expanding or offering and changing it, was, for me and for the Leap, it's about meeting these extraordinary people. And it's not just off the shelf, projects which you can find invariably, online. They are I've developed a podcast series interviewing them, The Road Less Traveled. It's like, these are extraordinary people who have chosen a different life. And for me, the kind of two examples. One, Namibia. This pair of leading scientists ended up in southern Namibia. They managed to charm the leading conservation man in Eastern Africa to invest in it. And before they know it, they are creating a whole new national park. I mean, it's just amazing, their story. And so our leapers that go out to help them for 4 weeks are exposed to this enormous dynamic initiative. It's just like, oh my God, there are people who are not choosing the normal life of doing university and business. They're actually dusting down their walking boots and going to make a difference. And so it's yes, they're contributing, but at the same time, they're just meeting these extraordinary people. And likewise, you know, flip to the other side of the world to Costa Rica, and the Plastic Oceans Project was set up by Pharrell Williams. I mean, of all people, that, you know, the pop star. And he just saw this issue of plastic, you know, which is relentless, never ending, set up and invested in building a recycling center, coordinated all the plastic that the kids pick up and analyze, take to the recycling center, it gets taken to America, converted into plastic thread, converted into groovy clothing, and the money comes back to the community. And it's just like, God, that's so cool. You know, so for us, it's yes, there are these set programs, go, enjoy, and blah, blah, but actually it's actually having the opportunity to connect with amazing people who are just going against the norm and saying, yes, there is a problem with our environment. Look at me, this is what I'm going to do. And through lockdown 1, we really met some incredible people that, you know, protecting sharks off predation. This American girl who just said no to everything in America and has ended up in southern Cambodia, building houses out of plastic bottles and broken glass. And it's like, okay, let's go and help these people. So that's, I couldn't tell you which one, because which one is the most popular, because they're all just extraordinary.
Fantastic. Great. Well, thank you so much to Nick and Millie and Roger and Emily for coming together to answer some of these tricky questions, and for offering so much hope and support to current and future gappers. There's a huge amount of information online. It's not all true or current or easily consumable. So we do hope this has shed a bit of light on some of the confusing aspects of travel for this year. And I think it's safe to say that any of the panelists today would be happy for you to drop them a line by phone, by email, or however you like, to ask for more information and advice. They are, as they've mentioned, keeping abreast of the most current and trusted sources of information. And all of our programs here have run programs or run courses in the last year working with travel restrictions in place, so they're experienced. And yeah, so that's fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Bye.
Bye.